The most common comment I get on my channel is from people saying, Dave, I just can't produce the iPhone RAW long exposures I want. So I think it's time for a tutorial. This is going to be my personal approach to iPhone RAW long exposures. Take a look at my Instagram, and if you like what you see there and you want to know my thought process behind those pictures, the settings I use, the gear I use, the apps, all that good stuff, then come along. Now, in terms of composition, it would be quite tempting to try and get the whole thing in, but I don't think that's going to be as effective as cutting off that bottom bit down there and getting, see those orange leaves at the top there with the trees, the way the sun's coming through. I think that is a far more effective. This tree over here is framing the picture rather than just trying to shoot that. It's tempted as you might be to try and get everything in. I would recommend cutting off part of what you came for. The long exposure effect in and of itself does not produce an engaging image. Yes, I came here specifically for the waterfall, but the flowing water by itself isn't special. It's only special when you contrast it against the surrounding still elements. So you need to take the whole scene into account when you're framing up and still be thoughtful about your composition. Right, so usually that would be me set up, but today I'm not done yet because I've got some filters. I've been testing and reviewing these Pans Snap filters, which are really, really cool. And I do have a full review planned, so I'm not going to go into too much about this system here today. If I can slide that in there, which I can't. But as you'll see in a second, it's so nice. When you don't be a div like me and you actually give yourself room to attach the filter mount, then it works really, really well. So attach the filter mount there. It's MagSafe, so all MagSafe iPhones work really well. Now, before I actually attach my ND filter and explain to you why I'm using an ND filter, even though I am in even longer, let me just compose, and then I need to do some maths. So the first thing I need to do is actually find my exposure. So if I go into, like, the ISO is 34, that's the lowest it'll go. Perfect. And now it's just a case of finding the shutter speed because the aperture is fixed. So let's just make a guesstimate at 640. Yes, really. When it comes to finding the best shutter speed, I make an educated guess every single time because the viewfinder is processed. You're going to get a nice exposure in the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights, whereas you're not going to get that at all in the raw file, and I think this is what most people struggle with. And let's use even longer's new single frame capture and just see what's going on. Right, so that looks alright. I may not need to bracket. So now, let's, just to be sure, I'm going to go into Darkroom, which is a proper raw viewer, and check my exposure. Yeah, so I've perhaps a few details lost down there, which I would like to preserve, but I am shooting in DNG, so I can get those back, but just in case, I am going to parallel bracket +1 EV. Parallel bracketing is where you capture two files simultaneously or in parallel at different settings. You're going to get one image at your main settings and you'll get another image either darker or lighter than the first one, depending on whether you chose plus or minus EV. EV stands for exposure value and it's measured in stops. So +1 and +2 refer to 1 and 2 stops. Here, I like my exposure on the waterfall, but I feel this part of the image may be too dark. So I've chosen +1 EV, which means I'll get a second file that is +1 stop brighter than the first that I can merge later. So that's my exposure. I'm happy with that exposure. Now, if I was to let's take a photo. Let's go, because of frame averaging, because I'm screen recording and parallel bracketing, the amount of frames even longer averages drops. So I want to capture for a little bit longer, and I want to capture even longer. 7 seconds. Usually this is like a 2-second exposure. But let's see what the actual result's going to look like, and I'll show you why I'm using filters. So that looks fine. It looks absolutely fine. But can you see how rough the water looks? It's not got that smooth, that syrupy, pouring caramel look that I really, really want. So what I can do is I can use my filters and change that. So I want to get to the maximum shutter speed the iPhone allows, or the slowest shutter speed, which is 1 second. Now I do have an app for that actually. I was about to perform mathematics right in front of you, but I do have an app which is called Long Exposure Calculator. So I want my shutter speed to be 1 second. So if I dial in my current shutter speed, which is 500, and I dial in what ND filter stoppage I have. So in this pans set, I've got a -2, a -4, a -6 and a -8. I've got 8 stops worth of ND. So that's the best I'm going to get, is half a second. So let's see what that actually looks like. I take my filter out here, and I forgot, and even longer, can you focus manually? I don't know. Anyway, let's change the shutter speed first and then put it on. So we'll go to half a second, which is what our app said we could achieve, and then snap the filter in place, just like that. And then you can see the preview changes. Now, let's see what's going on. Let's see if the maths was correct. I might, looking at that preview, be able to get away with a 1 second exposure, which is what I want. Okay. Go into the room of darkness. See what's going on. Yeah. Now look at how much better that water looks now compared to the other one. Proper, like creamy, buttery, like, you know, honey. It's like honey on one of those wooden things. Right, let's merge those parallel brackets and do some editing. But before we do, I want to thank this video's sponsor, Track Club. Track Club is a music licensing app for creators, offering exceptionally high quality music made by real artists that is infinitely customizable using Track Club's never before seen in-app customization feature, MixLab. With MixLab, you can actually customize each individual stem by muting or soloing instruments, adjusting volume levels, or speeding up and slowing down the BPM. And I used MixLab for the intro of this very video. I was looking for a very quick and snappy song that ended abruptly, and usually searching for something that specific would take me hours, and I would always have to compromise. I would never find a song that fit perfectly, and I would end up shoehorning it into my timeline. But with Track Club and MixLab, I found a song with elements that I liked. I went in and I explored each stem individually. I muted the ones that I didn't need, downloaded my mix, and it fit my timeline perfectly. And if Track Club sounds good to you as a creator, and why wouldn't it, I've got something very special for you. Just click my link in the description to get a free full access month of Track Club, no code required. Just click the link and you're good to go. So thank you so much to Track Club for sponsoring this video and genuinely helping me take my content to the next level. Now, I'm in Lightroom Mobile on the Mac, and here are the images that I captured. Here's that first test shot. If I go to the left, here is the not so good water, parallel brackets, and then I've got my main image and my bracketed image. So what I can do, if I press G on the keyboard, I'm going to select the two images that I want to merge together, and I'm going to press on the keyboard Control H. Gather the data, creating the preview. No need to auto align because we use a tripod, but we can leave everything just ticked the way it is. No need to deghost. Nothing should have changed. And just hit merge. And then we're going to get a third photo. Lightroom's going to stack them all together in not like a stack that you may think of, just in like a group, if you like. And then this middle image is going to be our new HDR photo. And we've got more dynamic range now. We can do with this photo more things than we could have in terms of exposure and detail and maybe colors, I don't actually know, than we could have with either of these two individual photos. Having said that, I did not need to do that. I didn't really need that extra dynamic range in this photo because the DNG format, as I alluded to when I was recording, like it's got so much dynamic range, I can easily recover the highlights in the water, bring back the details there, or I can go to this darker one and recover the shadows. So I'm going to pick one. I'm going to pick the lighter one actually, which was the bracketed image, and edit it how I used to edit my photos, and then I'm going to show you how the new direction that I'm going in, which is a more natural, true to life direction. So what I would have done traditionally is I would have brought all the highlights down so you can see every last detail in the water. So that's why I've come there, because I want to see the water. Then I would have gone to, let's just close a few of these other tabs here. Then I would have gone to dehaze and dehazed the heck out of it. Like really, yeah, let's get that water looking really, really like pumped. Looks like a pumped arm. Someone's been to the gym, got low body fat, and they're flexing their arm, and you see it. Never mind. Bring the shadows up, proper like HDR stuff, bit more contrast. Would have gone in the mask, linear gradient, bring the mask down, and then exposure, and then readjust the mask. Okay, readjust the mask, like made it maybe not so much like that. Okay, then I would have like texture in the trees and clarity and big old vignette. Maybe I would have done another radial mask on the waterfall. And what else would I have done? Maybe anyway, that's like colors. I would have gone to, I would have made everything look like it was autumn. I would have gone like, I used to went through a phase of hating the natural greens, how the greens looked in photos like this. So I would have gone to the yellows and just gone, and then gone to the greens and gone like that. No greens could exist in their natural state in any of my photos. They had to look like this. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not the approach that I want to go for these days. Now I want to go for a much more subtle, a lot more natural approach. I want it to look like it looked like on the day, how I remember it. And I want to be reminded of how the place felt. So going into my final edit for this photo, you can see the greens are still green. The leaves, all this foliage over here looks wet and soggy. It looks like it's experienced or is experiencing a cold and wet winter, because it is. It looks weathered. It looks beaten. The water, you can see the definition. I brought down the highlights. Again, not minus 100, just minus 44. So you can see the definition in the water, but not too much. You can see it bouncing down the different sizes and shapes of the rocks. I've used a mask, a linear mask again. Minus 30 though, not too much. The sharpness is the biggest slider adjustment that I've made, because in a frame averaged image, they can look soft because they have perfect noise reduction, which you can lose detail. So it's important to bring up the softness. Sometimes I bring up the grain, which can help, but you get grain in the long exposure parts of the image, which I don't want. I want to get that smooth, silky look. The colors, brought down the luminance in the aquas just to get some of that definition back. And I've dabbled with Darkroom's new color grading tool, brought down the luminance in the midtones, again, just to get that definition in the midtones there. So I'm very happy with this. I want to stick to this new direction. But finally, a bit of an elephant in the room, going against everything that I've just said about keeping my images true to life, is there is a fake sun rays. There are fake sun rays coming through the corner there. And now, okay, look, I've been using the sun rays for a long time, right? And now they are subtle. They're not like dead obvious like they are in this image from this portrait session I did at the start of this year or last year. So, like, look, I'm going to need time to be weaned off of these sun rays. I'm really into them, all right? So leave me alone and let me have my subtle sun rays. So there you have it. I hope you've learned something. I sincerely do. And I hope you've gained some confidence there, especially seeing the fact that I use trial and error to find my shutter speed, which is something that you may have done in the past and thought that, well, perhaps you should be getting it right the first time. And yes, I got it right the first time in this video, but I definitely haven't. I didn't hear, right? And this is from the original version of this tutorial. The version that you've just seen was my second recording. I recorded this version and I didn't like it. It was way too long, I felt. It was too detailed. Like, I got to like 20 minutes and I hadn't even got out my filters yet. I was going into why certain things are the way they are, how they work, how to think about things, how to apply them to your photography, and it included light trails. So after a year of not making videos and losing touch with you and losing a lot of confidence in myself with regards to what level of detail should be in these videos or what these videos are even about, to be completely honest with you. The fact that you're actually seeing a video now is a miracle. Trust me. So I sincerely hope that you learned something, that you found some sort of value in this. And maybe you just laughed at my bear hat or the fact that this guy working in the background, knocking down his wall in the background, made it look like I had stuff coming out of my nose. Well, maybe you didn't even notice, but I did. Either way, thank you so much for watching. Leave a load of comments, ask a load of questions, and I can say one thing with complete confidence, and that is, I'm back.